My journey to fluent English. When I was 20 years old, I could understand some English, but not very well. My vocabulary was limited, my accent was thick, and I often had to think in my native language before attempting to translate my thoughts into English. This process slowed me down, and often people couldn't understand what I was trying to say. In short, my English needed improvement. But I was determined to find a way to change that. I knew that improving my English would open doors for better opportunities, especially in terms of jobs and social interactions. I thought to myself, what kinds of opportunities will I have if I don't master this language? That question alone was enough to motivate me to take my first steps toward learning English fluently. One day, while watching TV, I came across an advertisement for an English fluency coach. His name was Mr. Smith, and he guaranteed that his students could become fluent in English within a year. The ad claimed that students who followed his program would speak English better than those who had been learning for 10 years. It seemed like a miracle solution, but of course, there was a catch. Mr. Smith only offered private lessons, and the cost was steep, $50 per hour, far beyond what I could afford at that time. I wondered how he achieved such incredible results, but didn't even bother calling because I knew I couldn't afford his services. Instead, I thought to myself, if he can figure out a way to teach people English in a year, maybe I can figure out my own way too. That was the beginning of my journey. I went to the local library and borrowed as many books as I could find on English fluency. I decided to focus on books written by native speakers because I believed that learning directly from natives would give me the best insights. As I worked through these books, I kept a dictionary by my side to look up unfamiliar words. After reading about 10 books, I noticed a pattern. Many of the strategies repeated the same advice. Listen, read, use what you've learned, and build vocabulary. I tried applying these strategies, but I quickly realized something. While I was getting better at understanding English, my speaking ability wasn't improving much. Frustrated, I continued reading more books, hoping to find the solution I was looking for. In total, I read about 60 books, but they all seemed to offer the same advice, and none of it was helping me speak more fluently. After feeling stuck for a while, I decided to try a new approach. Instead of focusing on books written by native speakers, I turned to books written by non-native English speakers who had successfully mastered the language. These were people who had gone through the same struggles I was facing and had come out the other side fluent in English. To my surprise, the non-native speakers' books offered similar advice to the ones written by native speakers, with one important difference: repetition. They emphasized repeating what you hear over and over again until it sticks. This was something the books by native speakers didn't focus on as much, but it made a huge difference for me. Among all the books I read, there was one that stood out, but it wasn't even about learning English. It was a self-help book by David Johnson on success and goal setting. At first, I wasn't sure if it would help, but as I read it, I realized that achieving fluency in English was just like any other big goal. It required setting clear objectives, creating a plan, and staying committed. Inspired by that, I combined the strategies from both the native and non-native speaker books and created my own learning system, which I called the Fluent English Method. My method was simple. I would immerse myself in English every single day and repeat everything I heard until I could say it fluently. At the time, I lived in Chicago, and my daily commute to work involved a 50-minute train ride each way. I saw this as the perfect opportunity to practice. I bought a cheap Walkman and started listening to English radio shows during my commute. I'd tune into National Public Radio, NPR, which had news programs that were perfect for learning formal English. There was a challenge, though. As soon as I entered the subway station, the radio signal would disappear. To solve this problem, I started recording the news every night and playing it back during my train rides the next day. I began whispering along with the recordings at first, but soon I started speaking out loud. The subway was noisy enough that no one could hear me, so I wasn't embarrassed to practice speaking out loud in public. In the beginning, I struggled. There were many words I didn't understand, and the news was spoken too quickly for me to keep up. But I stuck with it. When I came across a word or phrase I couldn't pronounce, I would rewind the tape and listen to it again until I could say it correctly. I repeated difficult words over and over again, sometimes saying them aloud 3 or 4 times before moving on. After 3 months of this daily practice, I decided to record myself speaking English to see how much I had improved. To my amazement, I was speaking more fluently than I had ever expected. My accent was still there, but it had softened considerably. My confidence was growing. Encouraged by my progress, I adjusted my approach slightly. Instead of recording new news programs every day, I started listening to the same recording for an entire week. This allowed me to master every word, sentence, and tone before moving on to the next recording. By the end of each week, I could practically recite the news program from memory. After a month of doing this, I had mastered 4 full news programs, each about an hour long. The results were incredible. My fluency improved dramatically, and my accent almost completely disappeared. I was able to speak with the same flow and rhythm as the native speakers I had been listening to. Not only could I understand English better, but I could also finally speak it with confidence and clarity. Looking back, the key to my success wasn't just about learning vocabulary or grammar. It was about immersing myself in the language every day and repeating what I heard until it became second nature. That's the power of the fluent English method. Consistent practice and repetition. If you're struggling with learning a new language, remember this. It's not about being perfect right away. It's about persistence, repetition, and finding opportunities to practice in your everyday life. Whether you're commuting, walking, or doing chores, you can turn that time into valuable learning moments. Stick with it, and you'll be amazed at how far you can go. Mastering fluent English. My personal journey. When I reached my early 20s, I had a basic understanding of English, but it wasn't enough to carry meaningful conversations. My vocabulary was quite limited, my accent was thick, and I always thought in my native language first, translating sentences into English before speaking. Unfortunately, this method made my communication slow and difficult to understand. I knew my English needed significant improvement. I was determined to find a way to change that. After months of consistent effort, I started to notice a major improvement. One day, while speaking with a friend over the phone, something unexpected happened. Midway through our conversation, my friend paused and asked, "What did you do?" Confused, I replied, "What do you mean?" He responded, "Your English. It's really good." The way he said good with such sincerity and warmth made me realize how far I had come. It wasn't just a casual compliment. It was a heartfelt acknowledgement that I had made real progress. A couple of weeks later, 2 of my cousins, both native English speakers, approached me and asked, "How is your English so good, but your siblings haven't improved?"
This kind of feedback further solidified my belief that the effort I was putting into my English learning journey was paying off. But I didn't stop there. I continued working on my English fluency long after that moment. Even as life changed and my circumstances evolved, I remained committed to improving my language skills. Eventually, I developed a new strategy, which I called the open throat method. This method became my secret weapon for sounding more native in English. It involved speaking from the diaphragm, letting the voice flow naturally from the stomach, and opening the throat. This method helped me achieve a native-like fluency. I'll share more details about it later, but for now, let me tell you about an experience that confirmed just how far I'd come. When my son was in first grade, he invited me to be a guest reader in his class. His teacher, initially skeptical, was clearly worried that I might not speak English well enough to engage her students. I could sense her hesitation. However, once I began reading to the class, the teacher's expression completely changed. She looked shocked, her eyes wide open, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. After a few moments, she smiled and even pulled out her camera to take pictures. She asked if she could feature me in the school's newsletter, and later, she invited me to participate in more class activities. The reaction of my son's teacher confirmed something important. I had reached a new level of fluency, a level where I could confidently speak English like a native speaker. It felt empowering to know that people were not only understanding me, but also impressed by my fluency, the open throat method. So, what is this open throat method, as I mentioned earlier? It's a technique I developed to improve not just the pronunciation of words, but the entire flow of speech. It focuses on how you use your body to produce sound. Specifically, the key is to open your throat, speak from your diaphragm, and use energy from your stomach to project your voice. By doing this, you allow the air to flow freely from your lungs, making your speech sound more natural and less strained. I first heard about a similar concept from my daughter's school choir teacher. The teacher explained to the class that when people sing with a chicken throat, a tight, restricted throat, their voice lacks power and resonance. The same principle applies to speaking. When you're nervous or shy, you might unconsciously tighten your throat, making your speech sound awkward and hesitant. But by opening your throat and speaking with confidence, your voice becomes clearer and more powerful. If you're afraid of making mistakes while speaking English, you might unintentionally close off your throat out of fear or embarrassment. Let me tell you this. It's completely normal to make mistakes when speaking a foreign language. The key is to be confident, open your throat, and speak with energy. It's all part of the process of improving your fluency. The Fluent English Formula. I also want to share with you a 3-step method I developed called the Fluent English Formula. This formula was instrumental in helping me achieve native-level fluency, and it's something you can follow too. Set your goal. The first step is to be clear about what you want. In this case, your goal is to speak English fluently or even at a native level. Setting a clear goal gives you a target to aim for. The word decide comes from a Latin word that means to cut off. Once you've decided that you want to speak fluent English, you need to cut off any distractions or doubts and focus solely on achieving that goal. The clearer your target, the easier it will be for your brain to guide you toward success. Take action. Setting a goal is important, but nothing will change unless you take action. It doesn't matter how much potential you have. The results come from what you do. When I decided I wanted to speak fluent English, I took action every day. I practiced speaking, listened to native speakers, and used every opportunity to improve. The same applies to you. If you want to speak English fluently, you need to take concrete steps toward that goal. 3. Follow through. The final step is consistency. Once you've set your goal and started taking action, you need to keep going day by day. Just like lifting weights, you don't start by lifting 300 pounds. You begin with a small weight and gradually increase the load. The same principle applies to learning English. Start with simple conversations and small vocabulary gains. Over time, you'll build fluency little by little. When I first started working on my English, I took one small action each day. After a few months of consistent effort, I had improved so much that people were complimenting me on my English. The small daily actions added up to significant results. Conclusion. If you've ever felt nervous or unsure about your ability to learn a new language, remember this. It's not about being perfect on the first try. It's about setting a goal, taking consistent action, and sticking with it, even when progress feels slow. By using the Fluent English formula and applying techniques like the open throat method, you can significantly improve your fluency over time. Whether you're practicing English on your commute, in front of a mirror, or with a friend, stay focused on your goal. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. Those mistakes are part of the learning process. If you follow through with determination, soon enough, you'll find yourself speaking English with confidence, clarity, and fluency. The path to fluent English. My practice journey. Mastering fluent English didn't happen overnight. After 6 months of practicing daily, I began to see real progress. My speech, once hesitant and broken, became smoother, more natural. But the journey didn't stop there. It was by building my fluency bit by bit, day after day, that I reached the level I wanted. After another 3 months of focused effort, I found myself speaking fluent English, something that once seemed impossible. If you work on your English just 1% every day, imagine where you could be 6 months from now. You'd likely have achieved a level of fluency you never thought possible. Let's review the 3 steps that form my fluent English formula. 1. Set your goal. 2. Take action. 3. Follow through. These steps are simple yet powerful, and when followed consistently, they will change your life. As Helen Keller said, life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. The power of practice, the one-word secret. Now that you know the formula, it's time to focus on the most important element. Practice. Just knowing the steps isn't enough. Let me illustrate this point with a comparison. Let's say you want to learn Kung Fu. You've watched Kung Fu movies, instructional videos, and even observed Kung Fu masters. You know all the moves required to fight 10 opponents. But now you're facing 10 people in real life. Can you defeat them? The answer is obvious. No. Knowing the techniques is not enough. You have to train your body and mind to fight those 10 people. The same principle applies to speaking English. Simply knowing how to speak English isn't enough to achieve fluency. You have to practice, and I mean really practice. You need to open your throat, relax your tongue, loosen your muscles, and control the flow of your speech. You need to prepare both your mind and body for speaking English fluently. And just like Kung Fu, practice is the key. There are countless opportunities to practice. Let me walk you through some practical ways to integrate English practice into your daily life. Where to practice? Anywhere. 1. On public transport, train or bus. If you commute by train or bus, you're in luck. These environments are excellent for practicing. When I was learning, I would find a quiet corner on the train and practice speaking out loud. I didn't whisper because whispering won't help you build confidence or the right vocal habits. You want to speak out loud, as if you're talking on the phone. In fact, in today's digital age, you can use your phone as a prop. Put on your headphones and pretend you're in a conversation. It's an easy way to practice in public without drawing too much attention. Buses are usually quieter than trains, which means you won't have to speak as loudly. However, remember not to whisper. Speaking softly won't engage your diaphragm or help you develop the throat and vocal control you need for fluency. 2. In your car. This is by far my favorite place to practice. The car offers privacy and freedom to go all out in your practice. I used to turn up the volume on English audio content and mimic everything I heard, from the tone to the volume to the rhythm. I would match the exact flow and expressions of the speakers I listened to. No one was around to hear me, so I could practice with full confidence, using hand gestures to reinforce my points. While today's technology makes it seem like you're just talking on the phone, I still close my windows to avoid any strange looks from passers-by. The car is where you can practice full speed. Just remember, practice your speaking, not reckless driving. 3. At home, while cooking or doing chores. Do you cook at home? I do, and I've found that it's a great time to practice English. Whether I was preparing breakfast or dinner, I used that time to put on my headphones and practice speaking. Cooking is such a routine activity that it frees your mind to focus on language practice. And it doesn't have to stop with cooking. You can practice while cleaning, doing laundry, or other household chores. 4. During outdoor activities. Going for a run, jog, or even just walking around the neighborhood can be a great opportunity for practice. Use your headphones and repeat after native speakers, focusing on pronunciation and intonation. Physical activity combined with mental focus enhances learning and can make the practice feel less tedious. Choosing the right materials. Now that you know where to practice, let's talk about the materials you should use. Choosing the right content is critical. The materials you select will determine whether you learn to speak correct English or incorrect English. The first choice you need to make is whether you want to speak British English or American English. The two accents are different, and if you want to speak like a native, you'll need to choose one and stick with it. Don't mix the two. Pick one accent, focus on it, and immerse yourself in materials that use that accent consistently. Once you've mastered one, you can go back and learn the other, but until then, concentrate on just one. Bruce Lee once said, "The successful warrior is the average man with laser-like focus." This applies to learning English too. If your focus is scattered, your results will be scattered. But if you focus on one accent and one set of materials, your progress will be sharp and noticeable. Once you've chosen your accent, it's time to pick the right materials. You want to learn from native speakers in real-life situations. Watching movies, listening to podcasts, or even imitating daily conversations will help you develop the kind of English that native speakers actually use. Practice, the key to mastery. Remember, practice is the one-word secret to mastering English fluency. Whether you're on the train, at home, or in your car, make practice a regular part of your routine. Use the time you have wisely. Little by little, your fluency will build, and one day you'll speak English as confidently as a native speaker. Now get out there and start practicing. You already have everything you need: a clear goal, the tools to take action, and the persistence to follow through. Mastering English is not just about knowing the language. It's about practicing it consistently and deliberately every day. Once you've made this decision, you should gather materials that align with your chosen accent. For instance, if you decide to focus on British English, choose books, videos, and listening materials that exclusively use British English. This approach will ensure consistency in your learning and help you develop an authentic accent over time. The same rule applies if you choose American English. Pick one, stay committed, and avoid switching back and forth as this could hinder your progress. Once you've mastered one accent, you can explore the other, but focus on one until you've achieved fluency. Imagine you're standing in front of two boats. One will take you to British English, and the other will take you to American English. Both will take you to your destination, but you can only sit on one boat at a time. The decision is entirely yours, and both options are equally valuable. However, remember that once you get on a boat, you must stay on it until you reach your destination. Switching boats halfway will only delay your progress. A key aspect of sounding like a native speaker is exposure to authentic language use. Make sure the learning materials you choose reflect real-life conversations by native speakers. For instance, instructional materials that feature overly formal dialogues are not representative of how people actually communicate in daily life. For example, while a textbook conversation might read like, "Mr. Wong, this is Mr. Chen, how do you do?" In real life, people would say, "Hey Dan, meet Bill. How's it going, Bill?" Focusing on natural language in everyday situations is essential. Look for podcasts, shows, and books that show how native speakers interact in the real world. Materials that use unrealistic scenarios or outdated language won't help you develop practical speaking skills. Find resources that are current, authentic, and reflect how people actually talk in informal and formal settings. While practicing, use whatever tools you have at your disposal. In the past, learning was often more challenging because technology was limited. Learners had to rely on basic audio devices, such as Walkmans, to practice listening. Now, with smartphones, headphones, and even Bluetooth car speakers, practicing has become much more accessible. Whether you're on public transport or walking in a noisy area, tools like noise-canceling headphones can help enhance your focus. There are various types of headphones available today to aid your listening practice. Over-the-ear noise-canceling headphones are designed to block out external noise, allowing you to focus on your listening materials without distractions. On the other hand, in-ear isolation headphones are more affordable and portable, making them great for outdoor activities or commuting. Whether you're using premium noise-canceling headphones or a basic pair, make sure that you're in an environment where you can clearly hear the materials and practice without disruption. However, don't rely too much on headphones unless necessary. It's important to practice speaking in natural environments, without always depending on technology to enhance your listening experience. This will help you better adapt to real-world situations where background noise is inevitable. Now that you understand the tools you need for listening practice, let's move on to setting clear, actionable goals. When learning English, your goal should be firm, motivating, and specific. This goal will be your driving force, helping you stay consistent even when the learning process becomes challenging. Think of your goal as a solid rock, something that will not change or waver as you progress. A strong goal can fuel your desire to achieve fluency. There are two main ways to set your goal: inspiration or desperation. For some people, the desire to speak English fluently is inspired by positive aspirations, such as securing a better job or traveling comfortably. For others, it's motivated by desperation, like avoiding limited job opportunities or feeling excluded in English-speaking environments. Either way, it's crucial to have a goal that keeps you pushing forward, especially when the process feels slow. For example, if you're stuck in a job that requires little English and you know you have the potential to do more, use that as motivation. You might set a goal like, I will speak fluent English in 1 year to improve my career prospects and secure a better job. This goal is specific, time-bound, and realistic, allowing you to track your progress over time. Once you've set your goal, it's time to take action. The second step in achieving fluency is practice. Listening to English daily, imitating native speakers, and actively engaging with the language are all critical components of this phase. Every day, spend time immersing yourself in English. Whether it's listening to podcasts, watching movies, or reading books, consistency is key. Make English a part of your daily routine. As you practice, don't shy away from speaking. Even if you make mistakes, speaking is a crucial step toward fluency. Join language exchange programs, practice with friends, or even speak aloud to yourself if you don't have a practice partner. The more you use the language, the more confident and natural you will become. The final step is to follow through. Achieving fluency doesn't happen overnight. It requires perseverance, patience, and a commitment to your goal. Track your progress regularly and celebrate small victories along the way, whether it's mastering a difficult pronunciation or understanding a complex conversation. Keep pushing forward even when the journey feels tough, and remind yourself why you started. In conclusion, becoming fluent in English, particularly like a native speaker, is a process that involves clear focus, the right materials, consistent practice, and a strong goal. Whether you choose British or American English, your dedication to learning one accent at a time will help you reach your goal. Stick with your plan, use technology and resources wisely, and remember that persistence is key to success. Chapter 2. The Power of Desperation and Determination in Learning English. I was desperate. I knew that if I didn't do anything about my broken English, I would be stuck doing labor work for the rest of my life. I would spend my days toiling away, sweating in the sun, doing physically exhausting tasks. But I didn't want that for my future. I wanted more. I wanted a better life. And I knew that mastering English fluency could open those doors for me. Speaking English fluently wasn't just about communication. It was the key to a world of opportunities. If I improved my English, I could work in an office. Imagine the difference. Instead of wearing rough, dirty clothes and working with my hands, I could be in an air-conditioned room, dressed in a suit, managing tasks and communicating with clients and colleagues. It wasn't just about escaping the hard labor. It was about creating a life that felt dignified, comfortable. This was my reason. It may seem small to some, but for me it was powerful. It was enough to push me forward every day, even when the journey felt long and the progress seemed slow. What is your reason? Your reason. A deep dive into motivation. Think about it for a moment. What is driving you to want to speak English fluently? What is it that pushes you to improve, even when you feel tired, overwhelmed, or discouraged? Having a reason that's close to your heart is crucial. It's the foundation that keeps you going, even when things get tough. Some people find their inspiration from others. They see people like Ken, a country boy who had never been very successful academically, who dropped out of school at a young age. Despite that, Ken found a way to master English and speak it like a native. He started at the age of 20, and within 6 months, he was fluent. This kind of story can spark a fire within us. Ken's story isn't unique because of his background. It's unique because of his determination. If he, a middle school dropout, can achieve fluency, why can't you? If Ken can do it, so can you. No matter your background, no matter your circumstances, if you want to speak English fluently, you have the potential to do it. But potential is only half the equation. The other half is action. So ask yourself, what is your motivation? What drives you forward? Desperation as fuel. Sometimes our reason is born from desperation. We look at our current situation and realize that if we don't make a change, nothing will improve. Desperation can be an incredibly powerful motivator. For me, the desperation came from knowing that if I didn't improve my English, I would be stuck in a life that I didn't want. The life of labor work. Desperation, example 1. If I keep speaking English poorly, I will continue to do labor work for the rest of my life. But if I speak English fluently, I will have the chance to work in an office, earn more money, and live a life of comfort. Desperation. Example 2. If I don't speak English fluently, I will never land my dream job. But if I speak English fluently, I won't just get that job. I'll be able to move out of this tiny apartment and buy the house on top of the hill that I've always dreamed of. When you frame your goals this way, with both the pain of what happens if you don't succeed and the pleasure of what happens if you do, your motivation becomes much clearer. It's not just about improving English because it's a good skill to have. It's about changing your life in a significant way. Take a moment to think about your life. What is the pain you experience from not speaking English well? And what is the pleasure you will gain from becoming fluent? When you have these two parts, pain and pleasure, your goal will feel much more achievable. Write it down. Yes, actually take a pen and paper, or your phone if that's easier, and write down your goal. Why? Because writing it down makes it real. It takes your goal out of your mind and puts it into the physical world. Don't just write it once. Place it somewhere you can see it often. I wrote my goal and taped it to the ceiling above my bed. Every night before I went to sleep and every morning when I woke up, I saw my goal. It reminded me of why I was working so hard. I also placed it on my desk where I spent a lot of time studying and working. I even carried a copy in my wallet so I could see it whenever I was out. The key here is repetition. The more you see your goal, the more it becomes part of your daily life. It's a constant reminder that you have something to work towards, something important, out of sight, out of mind. This is what happens when you forget to keep your goal in front of you. But when your goal is visible every day, it's much harder to ignore. The 80-20 rule for success. This is the golden rule for success. 80% of your success depends on your goal and 20% depends on the work you put in. Does that sound surprising? It's true. If your goal is strong enough, if your reason is powerful enough, the work will follow. When your heart is in it, you'll naturally find the motivation to keep pushing forward. If there is only one thing you take away from this, let it be this. Your goal is the most important part of your journey. Without it, you're left wandering, unsure of why you're putting in the effort. But with a clear goal, you know exactly why you're working so hard. And that makes all the difference. Stories of success. Let's look at two examples of people who use desperation and a strong goal to fuel their success. Thomas Watson, a man who was fired from his job, used that anger to set a goal. He didn't just want to find another job, he wanted to start his own company and compete with the business that fired him. He set a goal, worked tirelessly towards it, and eventually built IBM, a company worth billions today. His goal wasn't just to survive, it was to win. 2. Tim Waterstone is another example. After being fired, he set a goal to start his own bookstore business. But when he applied for a loan, he was rejected by 8 different banks. The ninth bank only approved him because the loan officer was retiring and didn't care about the outcome. Tim used that small chance to build his business, eventually selling it for millions. Today, Waterstones is one of the most well-known bookstore chains in the UK. Finding your reason and setting a goal. So, what is your reason? Why must you learn to speak English fluently? Not just want, not just need, but must. What is driving you forward? Find that reason now. Set your goal and write it down. Finding your reason and setting a goal. So, what is your reason? Why must you learn to speak English fluently? Not just want, not just need, but must. What is driving you forward? Find that reason now. Set your goal and write it down. Taking action. Learning from native speakers. Once you've set your goal, it's time to take action. To speak English like a native, you need to learn from native speakers. You've heard this before. Practice makes perfect. But it's not just about practicing English. It's about practicing English the right way. Think about learning a skill like Kung Fu. If you want to master Kung Fu, you have to practice it every day. The same goes for English. To master speaking like a native, you have to immerse yourself in the language, listening and repeating what you hear. Here are 9 actions you can take to start speaking English fluently. 1. Listen and repeat immediately. Listen to native English materials and repeat what you hear as quickly as you can. Don't worry about understanding every word. Just focus on repeating the sounds and phrases. 2. Complete the entire material. Don't stop halfway through. Listen to and repeat the entire piece of material from start to finish, even if some parts are difficult. Key. Record yourself. Record your voice repeating the material. This is crucial for tracking your progress. 4. Repeat. Again. Go through the material again, this time focusing on difficult words and phrases. Repeat them until you get them right. Focus on speaking, not meaning. Don't get caught up in trying to understand every word. Focus on the speaking, and the understanding will come naturally over time. 6. Mimic everything. From the tone to the flow to the speed, try to mimic native speakers as closely as possible. 7. Compare your recordings. Listen to your earlier recordings and compare them to your most recent ones. Notice the improvements. 8. Find new material. Once you've mastered one piece of material, find something new at the appropriate speed, whether slower, just right, or faster, and repeat the process. Follow through. Keep repeating this process, building on what you've learned and improving your fluency step by step. The importance of persistence. Here's a fun fact. 1% of people who buy instructional books follow the instructions and succeed. The other 99% either stop trying or look for another method. The question is, which one? The power of desperation and determination. Desperation is a powerful motivator. When the stakes are high and the future seems uncertain, it's natural to feel fear, worry, and anxiety. Yet these feelings can be channeled into motivation that propels you towards success. In my case, the desperation I felt about my broken English was a driving force. I knew if I didn't take action to improve my English, I'd be stuck doing labor work for the rest of my life. The thought of a lifetime of physical toil with limited opportunities was a bleak prospect. But if I could improve my English and speak fluently, I'd be able to get an office job, earn more money, and live a more comfortable life. This was my reason. This was my why, and it pushed me forward. What is your reason? Each of us has a different motivation when it comes to learning English or improving in any skill. You need to find your own reason, a reason that will ignite your passion and drive you to take consistent action. For me, the small but significant goal of transitioning from labor work to office work was enough to keep me going. What's your reason? Do you want a better job? Do you want to travel the world with confidence? Do you want to impress your friends, colleagues, or family members? Maybe it's as simple as wanting to communicate effectively and fluently with others. Whatever it is, you need to identify your reason, because that reason will be your fuel when the journey gets tough. Inspiration. If I can do it, so can you. Look around, and you'll find countless examples of people who have succeeded in speaking English like a native despite starting from humble beginnings. One such example is Ken. He's a country boy, a middle school dropout who didn't start learning English until he was 20. He worked diligently for 6 months, and by the end of that period, he was speaking English fluently, just like a native. If Ken can do it, then why can't you? If a middle school dropout can master English in 6 months, surely you can too. The key is not in talent, but in the effort and dedication you put into the process. In fact, I believe that anyone can speak English like a native if they follow the right steps. I will make myself speak English like a native. Repeat this mantra in your mind. I can do it. I will do it. Your belief in yourself is just as important as the effort you put in. Desperation, the catalyst for change. While inspiration can give you hope, desperation can give you the urgency to act. Imagine this. If you keep speaking English the way you do now, you'll be stuck doing labor work forever. But if you can master English, you'll open the doors to a more comfortable and prosperous life. Picture yourself in an office, sitting at a desk, handling important tasks, and earning a good salary. This vision should fill you with a sense of urgency. If you don't act now, you risk losing the opportunity to live the life you desire. Desperation is a two-part equation. First, you need to identify the pain you'll continue to experience if you don't achieve your goal. Second, you need to visualize the pleasure and rewards that will come when you succeed. Together, these two forces will create a powerful push-pull dynamic that keeps you focused and motivated. Write down your goal. Now that you have identified your reason and your source of motivation, it's time to solidify your commitment by writing down your goal. Yes, writing it down is crucial. When you write something down, it becomes real. It becomes a tangible reminder of what you're working toward. The golden rule of success. Here's a powerful rule that I've discovered. 80% of your success comes from having a clear goal, and only 20% comes from the work you put in. If you don't have a solid goal, all your hard work won't amount to much. It's like trying to drive somewhere without knowing the destination. The goal gives you direction. It gives you purpose. With a clear goal in mind, everything else falls into place. There's a famous story that illustrates the importance of having a goal. A man was fired from his company, and instead of wallowing in defeat, he got so angry that he decided to start his own company to compete with the one that fired him. His goal was clear: to surpass his former employer. Within a few years, he did just that, building a company worth billions of dollars. That man was Thomas Watson, the founder of IBM, the power of persistence. Another story that demonstrates the power of persistence is that of Tim Waterstone. After being fired from his job, he applied for a $100,000 loan to start his own business. 8 different banks rejected him. One bank even asked for 16 copies of his business plan, only to use it as an example of a bad plan. Despite these setbacks, Waterstone didn't give up. He tried a 9th bank, and this time he succeeded. The bank's loan officer approved the loan because he was retiring soon and didn't care about the risk. Waterstone went on to build the British bookstore empire, Waterstones, and eventually sold his business for $47 million. His story is a testament to the power of setting a goal and refusing to give up. Your goal is your guiding light. I cannot stress this enough. Your goal is the most important factor in your success. If there's only one thing you take away from this, let it be this. Your goal is your guiding light. No matter how hard things get, no matter how many times you fail or stumble, your goal will keep you on the right path. It's your North Star. Step 2. When I started my own journey to speak English fluently, I had only one simple reason driving me. I didn't want to be stuck doing labor work for the rest of my life. That single reason was enough to push me forward. If you can find even one reason why you must speak English like a native, not why you want to, but why you must, you will succeed. It's not about wanting, needing, or should. It's about must. What is your must? Step 2. Take action. Now that you've identified your goal, it's time to take action. To speak English fluently, you need to learn from native speakers. But the key is not just learning passively. You need to practice actively. Just like learning Kung Fu, if you want to be good at it, you have to practice it. The same goes for English. In the following steps, I'm going to guide you through a proven method to help you get rid of your accent and speak English fluently like a native. Make sure you have an MP3 player or cell phone ready with headphones. And let's begin. Action 1. Listen and repeat immediately. The first step is simple but crucial. Listen to the native study material and repeat what you hear immediately. I mean right away, without any delay. If you hear the beginning of a sentence, repeat it. If you hear the middle or the end, repeat those parts as well. Don't try to understand or memorize. Just repeat. This exercise is all about training your brain and mouth to form the correct sounds and patterns of English speech. Action 2. Finish the whole material. Once you've repeated individual sentences, move on to repeating the entire material from start to finish. This step helps you build flow and rhythm in your speech, allowing you to speak in full sentences rather than fragmented words. Action 4. Repeat again. Repetition is key to mastering any skill. Go through the entire material again, repeating everything from the beginning. This helps solidify the patterns in your brain and make speaking English more natural. Action 5. Focus on the difficult parts. Now that you've gone through the material several times, go back and focus on the parts you found difficult. Repeat them until you can say them comfortably. Action 6. Ignore the meaning. Focus on speaking. It's natural to want to understand every word, but for now, focus only on speaking. Understanding will come with time. For now, concentrate on getting the sounds, rhythm, and flow of the language right. Action 7. Practice 3 more times. By this point, you should feel more comfortable with the material. Practice it 3 more times to reinforce what you've learned. Action 8. Record again and compare. Record yourself once again and compare this recording with your earlier one. Do you notice an improvement? If so, congratulations. You're on your way to speaking English fluently like a native. Action 9. Choose new material. Finally, once you've mastered the material, choose a new piece to work on and repeat the process. Continue building on your progress by challenging yourself with new materials. Step 3. Follow through. The most important part of any process is follow through. It's not enough to practice once or twice. You need to make it a habit. Okay, friends. This all about today's video. Thank you for watching this video. I am with you for help you to learn English like native speaker and fluent in English. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on notification to all. I am doing hard work for you guys. Please keep me support so I can give you premium material. Thank you for subscribing to me. Have a good day.